Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans, it's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, a place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to let our guests from Royal Guard Publishing introduce themselves, and we're going to start with you, Miss Jessica.
My name's Jessica, and I am the owner and CEO of Royal Guard Publishing.
They gotta have like cooler names than that for CEOs. Just something that just pops, like Empress of all things audio or something. I don't know, something that sounds better on a business card.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Empress of all audio, that works.
All right, Miss Ryleigh, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Ryleigh. I'm Royal Guard Publishing's assistant / professional dog petter. Whichever you want to go with.
Pet dogs. I need this job. I did not.
It's pretty sweet. Oh no, it's very demanding.
All right, and next we have Mr. Jonathan Waters.
Hi guys, I'm John Waters. I'm a voice actor and whatnot. As far as out here, and if you're looking for titles and things like that, the Lord of Mountain Home, the owner of 2 semi-well-behaved corgis and 2 cats, and the badass in his basement right now. So enjoy.
You noticed, dear listener, he did not say the cats were well behaved, just the corgis.
Have you met them?
All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Mr. Matt Pivots.
Hello, I'm Matt Pivots. I'm one of the authors that writes for Royal Guard, 2 series to my name, and my title is The Mining Engineer Gone Rogue.
Mining Engineer Gone Rogue. So you studied rocks. I like it.
Yeah, and how to blow them up. That's the most important part. And
You
let
had
them
me
not
blowing them
fall
up.
on people. Don't let them fall on people and blow them up. Those are the 2 things you got to do as a mining engineer. Piece of cake.
And they pay you to blow that stuff up?
Yeah, big money.
Man, they'd get more kids to study science if you could tell them they could blow stuff up for pay.
That's why I picked it. Yeah. Virginia Tech is like 10 different majors in engineering, mining. It's like, do you like duct tape?
I mean, I grew up a UVA fan, but tech's cool too.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, and with that, so we're going to do the religion questions. Hopefully you guys get the right answer, because if not, I mean, we do have the eject button, but we're going to give it a shot. So, Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly? Miss Jessica.
I'm Star Wars. I actually decorated my baby's room in Star Wars, so I have to do Star Wars.
Excellent, excellent. She gets to stay. All right, Miss Ryleigh.
Probably definitely Star Wars too. Anakin's just, yeah, like enough said.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll move on. Jonathan, Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Well, hey man, I like all 3. But here's the thing: I've seen most, if not all, the Star Warsies. So that's not my number 1. Number 2 is Firefly, and I am this week. I thought about becoming a Trekkie, like little by little, be like, all right, where do I start? So that's my order, man. It's all good stuff.
Absolutely. And we don't yuck anybody's yum. So I guess if you want to be a purist, you have to start with the original series, I guess.
Yeah, sadly. It's going to be a long trek.
Series, though, so get it done soon. All right. And last, but certainly not least, Mr. Matt. What do you got for us?
I like new Star Trek, old Star Wars. New Star Wars is horrible. Old Star Trek, horrible. My opinion. Don't kill the messenger.
Okay. That's a defendable answer. We'll go with it. All right. And because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia? Miss Jessica.
Game of Thrones, for sure.
You like the Grimdark? Okay. Is it the books or the TV series?
The TV series, yeah. I tried to read the book, but I'd already watched the series, so it was too hard. If I had read the book first, I would have liked it.
Okay. Ryleigh.
Chronicles of Narnia.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice. Childhood favorite of most people with common sense, so I dig it.
Yeah, mine too.
All right, Jonathan.
Well, here's the issue, right? Like, I've read through Narnia and seen the movies that they put out and whatnot, but that I don't feel that can be my first one, because I've done about half the books and they are can we swear on this? Otherwise,
Sure.
my vocabulary goes way down.
You're fine. You're fine.
But like, Game of Thrones books are thick as a dick. Like you read one Game of Thrones book, it's like most of Narnia and in that one. But that being said, like I'd love myself some Game of Thrones. Like I never thought I would be like rooting for incest to like show up constantly. But it's boobs and dragons. What's wrong with that? And I wish I'd started with like Wheel of Time to know what it's about. But there's like 13 some odd books, and those are also incredibly thick. But like the people who go through that gauntlet, like, are changed from from whenever they start. So
Big rewards.
again, much like Star Trek, I'd like to hop into that and see where I come out at the end. Maybe when I'm like 60. So
I mean, you got time on your hands. You'll be okay.
I hope so.
All right, Matt.
So I think Chronicles of Narnia, that's like an OG lit RPG, like realistically, right? Like you're transported, and like that kind of got me into it. And then, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Game of Thrones gets a little dark for me. My writing style isn't dark and whatever either. So yeah, I'm a little bit on the wussier side. And so I liked Game of Thrones, but I'll stick with the children's books, aka the Narnia stuff.
Okay. I don't know. I don't mind darkness. I just want to know there's hope at the end of the tunnel. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that light can't be the train coming to run you over.
You don't know if there's ever light. Yeah.
Right. So I have to know that there's progression forward to better. If I have that, I can tolerate a lot on the dark, but I don't think you really get that with Game of Thrones. It's just all dark. Varying shades of dark,
right?
There is.
To be fair, I thought there was hope for a really good ending.
I mean, we all did.
There was not. Like I thought it was going to redeem itself with the ending. And
maybe they'll redeem themselves when they write the ending for the books. Maybe he was like playtesting possible options.
I have that theory too.
I think,
or he just plans on passing away and letting someone else finish it for him. I mean, I hear Brandon Sanderson can do it.
Dragging the dragon out of the ocean or the lake was the saddest. Like that was the most down I've ever been watching a show in my life. Like that was the saddest thing I've ever seen. Let's throw that out there.
Absolutely. All right. And so one of our sponsors of the show has routinely reminded us that the crying shame of adulthood is no one asks you what your favorite dinosaur is anymore. So we're gonna correct that wrong in society. And Jessica, do you have a favorite dinosaur?
Okay, I might say it wrong, but the Ankylosaurus, the one with the big bulby spiky thing on his tail.
Yep. I'm gonna go with it and say that's the right spelling or pronunciation. We're just gonna go with it. All right, Miss Ryleigh.
Probably the Brachiosaurus. I'm probably not saying that right either.
Okay.
No justification, but they're cool.
Yeah, it sounded right to me. We're gonna smile and nod on this one. All right, Jonathan.
As much as I would love to say like T-Rex or Velociraptor or something like that, I'm with Ryleigh a little bit on this, but I'm gonna go with the Brontosaurus with myself.
Brontosaurus. Okay. What is it about that one for you?
It's the long neck. I mean, the Brachiosaur and Brontosaurus, like they're just different versions of kind of themselves, right? But there's something very, peaceable, and Alan Grant calls them, just a big cow, and they seem pretty like chill with themselves. And unless they're the whales of the land at the time, like unless like everybody teamed up to take one down, you couldn't really eat one unless it was dead. And on some level, I'm like, it'd be kind of nice to be that big. We're like, I'm just going to eat my plants, make some more Brontos, and keep walking, I guess. And then maybe do it like that handstand from Jurassic Park.
Works for me. All right, Matt.
So I didn't used to have this one as my favorite, but the pterodactyls, like the flying ones, I didn't know how friggin' huge they were until I watched Jurassic Park. And I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe your sponsor Patreon guy will tell me. But they're enormous, and they like took down people and like buildings and stuff. So that turned it into. Yeah, I used to be a Velociraptor fan. They're cool, right? I'm a little guy. I'm like 5'6", right? So I'm like attack like as a small person. But yeah, so I think they used to be until I watched that, and I was like, these things are cool. So.
I've seen
don't
where
have teenagers yet.
Yeah, right. My oldest
Because
is
they make pterodactyl noises all day long. And I can't explain it to you.
my 1-year-old does as well. So
I've seen some bones that were pretty massive at the various museums because I live in Virginia, so I go to DC sometimes for museums there, and some of the ones, assuming they're to scale, they can get pretty decent sized. So we're gonna go with it because they had it at the museum in DC, so they can't be wrong. It's just not allowed.
It's like
All
the
right.
internet.
Right. The internet knows all things and it's never wrong either. So last, but certainly not least, because we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes, we try to be civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Coffee or tea? And how do you take it, Miss Jessica?
I drink coffee and I'm kind of lame. I put like protein milk in it and collagen to be healthy. That's like my breakfast.
That's not lame. That's cool. What about you, Ryleigh?
Tea. The English breakfast tea with lavender milk.
Okay, but do you drink it with your
Sounds
pinky?
weird. No. Most of the time it's in like the Yeti cup in the back of my cabinet. That's been through way too much.
Wait, I didn't even know lavender milk was a thing. I'm gonna have to look more into that because I'm curious. All right. Is it just lavender flavored milk, or is it like they literally
It's
make
just lavender flavor? I'm pretty sure it's just lavender flavor.
Okay. Learn something new every day. All right, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm a Lipton Black tea kid, and I take it in a bag, and there's some hot water, and sometimes I drink it before noon. So like, that's about it.
Okay. And Matt.
I'm like the froofiest mocha coffee drinker in the world, but I haven't had a fully hot cup of coffee in about 7 years. That's how old my oldest kid is. Every time I try to drink a coffee, I get about halfway and I have to reheat it like 6 times to finish it. But coffee with lots of creamer or mocha flavoring in it is my jam.
Or you forget about it and you come to it days later and like, oh, the milk curdles.
It's
gross.
in the microwave.
Right. Done that.
Yeah. So
done that. All right. So when you do your tea, do you guys do the loose leaf, Ryleigh and Jonathan, or do you do like the mesh bag or just straight Liptons?
Just normally the straight Liptons.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty lame. I got the loose leaf stuff, but it's a lot of work when I'm just trying to get
protect his precious throat and drink tea all day.
Sounds dirtier than you mean it, I guess, with some of the books I've done.
I mean, in the business we're in, it might be.
His
I have your priorities.
Ooh.
All right. And so now that we got that out of the way, so how did you guys? Well, first off, Jessica, how did Royal Guard Publishing come to be, and then how did everyone get involved?
Royal Guard Publishing became a thing from my husband was doing Bitcoin mining right after we had a baby, and it was not really making that much money, but he was super into it. So I was like, if you want to keep doing this hobby, you got to fund it. So he wrote a book and he self-published it on KDP. And that was Griff the Griffin Rider, the book that started it all. And we were I was like, hey, it'd be cool if a few people read your book that aren't like people you're forcing to read it. But it ended up doing really well and being like, I don't remember exactly the stats on it and everything, but it did really well enough to keep writing. And then he was like, oh, you can actually self-publish audiobooks too. And I was like, oh man, that's like really expensive. Like, oh, that's scary. And then he had made enough to fund it, so he did it, and that did well. And then that turned into another series, and then he's very, very active in the author community. He's not active on these kinds of things, but he's very active in the author community. And so he just made a lot of friends and colleagues, and we had a couple other people where we're like, well, we'll do your audio for you. Like, let us give it a try. And then that went well. And then that just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. And then we became enough to be Audible partners. And right around that time, we were like, it was just me and him. And I was running all the audio on my own, managing all of it. And I was like, I really can't keep doing all of this myself. So I need to hire someone. And then we put like an ad up on, I think, Indeed or something, and Ryleigh applied, and so now she's here. And we found Jonathan. He cold emailed me and was like, "Hey, I'm a narrator. Do you want to give me work?" And I was like, "Well, we only do not duet narration." And he was like, "I don't want to do that." And I was like, "Oh, then I have no work for you. But if you're willing to do it, I have lots of work for you." And he was like, "Okay, I'll try it." And he did Deacon Frost's series, the Otherworld Academy series, and that kind of just took him off in the genre. And now he's like one of the top narrators in the Harem-lit genre, and now he's starting to do more and more lit RPG series as well. My earbuds keep falling out. Sorry. I'm gonna if I switch to headphones, is that gonna mess up all the audio?
Nope, you should be fine.
I will do that while the next person's talking.
Absolutely.
And then we found Matt Pivots. I think through a Facebook group, he was posting about something of maybe he was trying to get a publisher, but they didn't want a shorter lit RPG book. And we were like, "We'll take your short lit RPG book." And that just kind of grew into a lovely colleague relationship where we chat a lot on a regular basis. And that series did really well, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And then we did a second one as well.
Okay.
And now we have over 800 audiobooks published. Woohoo!
Crazy.
Ambitious. So at what point in time did you name it as Royal Guard, and how did you come up with what the name is?
I guess like once we learned about taxes, we were like, "Oh, this should not be in our name. We're supposed to have a business name with like a business account," and we didn't know like that we were supposed to send 1099s to narrators or anything like that. Like we were figuring all that stuff out. So at that time we were like, okay, we should get a business account and a business. And honestly, my husband made up the name. He just liked it. I don't really know where he got it from. And I was like, oh, I like it too. So it just went from there. And then I guess that was it. That was like in 2020.
Okay. So how did you find them, Ryleigh? You said you just found an ad?
Yeah, I was looking for jobs on Indeed and I saw it. And then I looked up, I like hardcore stalked the whole thing, looked them up on Facebook and found her publishing email. And I emailed her.
Stalk is so pejorative. We should call it market research. That sounds a lot fancier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds a lot
No,
better.
she like went on and found like a different email to email, which is why I interviewed her first out of everyone else that applied, because I liked that she took like that extra step to be like a little bit more stalky, to find like a different email. And she sent like a picture of her and her dog, and because we have dogs in our office, so yeah.
Nice.
It was stalking, but in a good way.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, if this doesn't work out, you got a career in the FBI, it sounds like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So what made you decide you wanted to look for jobs with a book company, or it just sort of happened that's what you saw as an opening?
Yeah, it just kind of happened, honestly. But now that I'm in it, like, wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
So what all do you do for the company?
Oh, how long we got?
How long you got?
I put the files together, like all the audio files. I put up all the ebooks. Well, not all the ebooks, but I put up a lot of the ebooks, do the paperbacks, do the social media, along with Marcus as well.
Wow, so you're a busy person. Did you expect it to turn out to the kind of job that it was when you first applied?
No, not at all. Honestly, I didn't think I'd get an email back.
Okay. Well, are you glad you did?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Jonathan. So what was it like for you going to duet narrations? Because that's something I'm just getting used to listening to, but I find it does work.
It does. And well, I've been doing my this is gonna sound as dirty as I mean. I've been doing myself for so long that the idea of doing duet narration was just, as Jessica said, at first I was like, I don't really know, just because you're handling someone else's stuff, their setup, their this, that, and the other. And I am not very close at all to being an audio engineer by any stretch of the imagination. Anybody who asks me about like, well, how do you do the thing and how do you do the this? Well, I'm like, well, I went to BSU and learned to do the acting side, but all the technical side is like Frankenstein. It's just a whole bunch of dials and whistles and hope to God that like it all comes through. And about once a year, Jessica sends me an email being like, hey, this, messed up. I'm like, oh God. And like, eventually get through it. And it all kind of works out. But so working in duet or dual narration, at this point, it's kind of my bread and butter of what I do. And I'm not like the end all be all. I'm really happy to be working with this company, and I have no intention of stopping ever until I die. But it is a challenge because sometimes you work with female narrators or even male narrators sometimes that have a setup that is wildly different from yours, whether better or worse, and you kind of have to put everything kind of together. So it was a little daunting at first because it was just me. But after having done it for a while, the dials become less funky, they become less scary, and it's pretty great as far as what I do. And I have yet to run into one other narrator that I've had the pleasure to work with that I've been like, this person needs to, is terrible or what, one way or the other. They've all been phenomenal. They've been great. They've been super communicative and whatnot. And I've worked with several wonderful female narrators in the past, and I hope to keep on working with it in the future. But it's daunting, right? Like it's I have to do my job and someone else's in a sense. As far as technically goes, I don't. The thing I tell them all is like, don't worry, I don't direct you. That's not my job. It can be, but you submit to me the thing, and I'll let you know if I need something else from that. So sometimes you just got to take that big step, right? Like it's always going to be a little bit scary. But I did it, and I'm really glad I did because finding you guys like was a fluke. As far as Royal Guard, because I was just Googling audio productions or publishing houses that were dabbling in it. And I was like, I do the thing, and it all kind of worked out.
Used to do mostly like a lot of history fiction stuff.
I still do. I work with a guy, James Mace, who that's his bread and butter. Former vet, this, that, and the other. And he does a lot of British history that is historical fiction. Like the battles and the people that died there and the plans that were made are all historically accurate. The things that like Greg said to George might not be the thing, but tomorrow most of them are going to die. Like it just is that thing.
So do you do the project management, or do you just do your part and then somebody else puts it all together and does the female side?
So here's kind of how it goes down, and I'm really happy that it goes down this way. So every couple of weeks or so, Jessica or someone is like, we want you. And I'm like, awesome. And here's your little team. Here's the person you're going to work with. We have a Discord that we can talk to each other and figure some stuff out. And then from there, I'm kind of left to my own devices, provided like you want this guy to sound like this, right? Okay, cool. Right. Let's make that happen. And we just go until hopefully I hit the deadline. So we're a little bit left to it. And I take care of my side of the recording. I do the arranging, putting the stuff together, and making sure that it hits all those specs for Audible or ACX or wherever, as best as I am able to do, and making sure that the female side usually is at least comparable to each other, because you don't want someone who sounds really, really good to suddenly have like car noises in the back instantly when you have the female voice. Be like, oh, this was not done in a studio. So the more immersive and it can be, the better it is. Even if I'm not adding music or anything like that. I'd like to get there, but that sounds like a bigger team effort.
Virgil's got you doing some crazy stuff, but I don't think we'll talk about that.
Virgil's got me doing some fun stuff, but it's the next step in the progression, I feel, of what's going to happen. I'm excited.
Yeah, you've done a lot of Virgil Nightly stuff.
I have, and I dig him entirely. He's a really cool guy, and I lucked out in being introduced to him totally through Jessica and probably Ryleigh. That they're like, we want you, and out of him came Sibelius. This, I don't know if I can talk about it, but screw it, here we are. One of his books, he's like, you, I guess, because Virgil said, and I'm like, the more Virgil tells, like, the more my taxes don't suck at the end of the year. So, yeah, it's all tail end stuff, right? As far as the technical, it is tedious, sure, because it's like it's like making little train cars, basically. But it's fun. I really enjoy my job, especially because I'm in my basement right now. This is the abode, what I'm allowed to decorate.
Okay. So have you ever gotten anything where you're like, you had to reach out to the author and be like, I hate you. Why'd you rake this word I can't pronounce?
There was, what was that? It wasn't for Royal Guard.
If you do that, we'll just make them write that in the next book like 7 times.
This, not to try to sell this as it was another lit RPG book, but it wasn't done by
okay, you can talk about other stuff.
This was a minute ago. I still love you.
Work with other people. It's okay.
This was fast. He had this name for this old wizard, and it was like, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious long. And he was like, this will be fun. And I think how it came about was he had the great idea that he would go to these cons and someone did a raffle. I cannot for the life of me remember the name. But someone did a raffle, and it was like, you get to pick a name to be featured in my next book. And someone won it and put this long ass pain in my ass thing in there, and it exists. It's Terry Irvin II. It's his Monsters, Maces, and Magic series. It's like 7 books deep. He hasn't written anything for that in a minute, but it's good. It's comfortable. It is slightly pervy, like a 1 out of the usual 5-star or 5 spices that I'm used to doing. But I haven't really run into anything like author wise being like, no, not gonna do that. Because 1, I'm avoiding desperately to be a diva because I like working. And 2, on some level, I'm just here to bring their life to work. Ideally, hopefully, they can phonetically be like, oh, it's this thing, as opposed to like, no, you say it. Just say it. I wrote this so that you would say it, Mr. Voice Person. Well, thanks.
I mean, that's what Marcus does.
I have no idea how
you get a kick out of this, Jonathan. When I wrote my book, The Reservist, that was published by Wargate Publishing, I had one of my beta readers that's been with me the whole time, but he's from Sri Lanka. So his name is very difficult to pronounce. To be honest, I can't even pronounce it, but I put it in there anyway. And I was just laughing to myself because it made it through like 9 stages of editing. And finally got to Christian Rummel, who did my audiobook. And he's like, JR, no, we're not doing this. We're going to call him Navin. We'll shorten it. And so the whole book had to then be re-edited, and they took out his first name or his last name, and they just used his first name as a last name because it works. So I was always curious at every step of the way, like, is he going to make it through this round of edits? So I always ask audiobook narrators.
I've lucked out pretty well. It's rare that I've worked with bad authors, quote unquote, and not necessarily like their writing's bad, but more often than not, it's me having to kind of deal with them one-on-one. I would love nothing more than to communicate about your book and you tell me this back, everything. Sometimes I get books and sometimes it works perfectly fine and I'm left to my own devices, and that's fun. But sometimes I get a book that's, you get something like the beginning of Wheel of Time or Game of Thrones or something that's thick and kind of juicy and amazing, and you get an author being like, just go. Like, what do you mean? There's like 50 characters like in the first couple of chapters. What do you want? Like, whatever you different.
So,
bro, do you know how many accents there are in the world? I can only do like several, but like, come on. Like so I love communicating with authors, especially those that are passionate about their work and what they like to do and why they made the book that they did. Luckily, I haven't gotten a ton of like, your direction with this sucked from them to me. Because I'm never gonna be like, hey man, like your third act really fell apart. Like, where is my place to say
It's
that?
off a cliff.
Like more often than not, man, I'm just gonna tell their author or whatever, hey, I really like this book. I really hope you keep writing more, and it's getting better and better and whatnot. Because it's sadly like it would never be my place unless it was like beers in somewhere, and you would have to pull it out of me, being like, okay, buddy, here's. Not like I would do that. Never, ever, ever, ever.
That's the only thing I've ever heard. So you're telling me that's a lie?
I mean,
he's not telling you, that's for sure.
Most of the time, I like anything I get out of anywhere these days, especially Royal Guard. Like I'm getting some primo stuff between like the lit RPG side, between the fantasy side, between the potentially smutty side and stuff like that. All of this comes together in this wonderful soupçon of all these authors who come together to make the things that they really kind of enjoy, and the audience seems to love it too. And I'm really, really lucky that I get to be a part of that in some shape or form. But funny enough, most of the time I'm the guy like that shouldn't necessarily get like any sort of praise, which I would love, but like most of this is me trying to elevate the ladies, right? Like a lot of the time it's a male listenership, right? Like generally. So the more I can be like, this, look at her, isn't she great? Like the less to be like, that guy does not sound like an every guy, or like what I sound like when I get zipped to whereverville with these stats. I'm John Waters, goddammit.
So do you prefer if the author is like, I don't care how you pronounce anything, I don't have a preference, or do you want them to be like super diva and like, no, it has to be pronounced this way?
It's a process, right? Like if you wrote that fantasy word, like you got to give me some phonetics, man. Like if it's an X, 3 X's, an H, 5 Y's, and like a number 3, you got to help me out here. Being like, oh, it's pronounced Sharon. Being like, couldn't you just written that? Like, this would have saved me so much time. But it's a balance, right? Because if a lot of the times I'm getting just kind of a book from Jess, and I don't necessarily all the time.
We don't force our authors to write a narrator guide if they don't want to.
Right.
So we do allow them to choose creative freedom, and a lot of them do. And
I'm more than happy to, not like I'm trying to be scary of like, I'm going to do your book and it's going to be my way, whatever. No, I'm here to make your book your way with this idiot voice coming out of me. So like it's a balance though. We actors are fragile little flowers all the time. And so, I run into authors at times that are a little diva-y, but I get it. It's your baby. You sat with this thing for potentially years to put this thing out. Potentially, some authors just rattle this stuff out and be like, "Send it to John. He'll know what to do." But like, there's the diva of like, kowtow to me, as opposed to like, let's make this the best thing that we can together, which is the best way to go about it. And there's verbiages and terms and being like, you got to tell us we're okay, otherwise we're going to go home and cry and whatever. But like this is a collaborative effort across the board, right? Like audiobooks in general should be, ideally, because I'd spoil the book for me, man. Like a lot of authors don't want to spoil any of their book for me, and they're like, oh well, when you get to this part, I'm like, I'm reading the damn book, man. And most sadly, and this is going to out me to all your listeners and all the other audiobook narrators, that I don't necessarily pre-read because I got shit to get through. So the more you can be like, hey, Tom dies, good luck. Like, you can tell me when. I can build to this. Like, this is stuff I can work with. Like, tell me what happens is like. And then obviously the answer to the author be like, well, just read the book, I guess. I'm like, I'm trying to rip this thing out so we all make a little bit of scratch on it. So, I mean, it's the more in the middle, I guess, the more gray you are, I is better, I guess. We could go deep on that if you wanted, but we should probably talk to Matt at some point.
At some point, absolutely. And we're going to pause for a second where we insert the commercial in post-show. And now that we're back, Matt, so how did you get into this writing genre?
Whew. So my story is interesting. I got almost in trouble. So I was like, hey, I love lit RPG. I read He Who Fights Monsters first. That was my first toe dip, along with a lot of others, I'm sure. And I was like, this is awesome. Then I read Primal Hunter. Love that. I was like, this is a great genre, man. This is cool. Then I read something else next. I think Ripple was next. I was like, okay, I'm starting to see a theme here, right? Like, good guy gets really strong, good guy crushes everybody, and then keeps going. Next book, good guy gets even stronger, crushes everybody, whatever, right? So my background's mining engineering. I'm an engineer. I've always kind of like gone support class when I've played video games and stuff. And I was like, what happened to that guy? You know, like, where's the guy who wants to just be in the background and be like, here, take this sword that I made. How awesome is this thing, right? Look at these runes I made. Like, and then, of course, everyone was like, that would be a boring book. I was like, or would it? Right. So, like, that was my kind of thing. And I went on, and I just kind of wrote on, what's the website? Why am I like drawing?
Royal Road.
Yeah, Royal Road. So I went to Royal Road, made a book, and was still working. I had 2 kids at the time. Now I have 3. That's, whatever. I have a 1.5-year-old now. So I had 2 kids at the time. So they would leave the house at 7:45. Start working, start writing, would write for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes a day, write a chapter, try to edit if I could, and then work. So like every day, like a workout every day. So I started posting chapters, and the feedback was like, this is garbage town, right? Like, wow, you're real bad. And so I would like redo it and then try something else. And then they were like, wow, I feel like, are you even there? Like, what are you doing? There's no descriptors at all. And I was like, oh, descriptors, right. Then there was too much descriptors, right? Then I got to like chapter 6, and people started changing what they were saying in the comments and like interacting with me and being like, oh, I can't wait, or what a dick, or like blah blah blah, I can't wait, what's gonna happen? And then it turned to like crack almost, where people were like, where is my chapter today? And I was like, what is happening here? Right. So that was cool. That was a cool flip. And so I put a post on there on whatever Facebook thing and was like, I think my book's going to be like 60 to 65,000 words. I sent a couple things out to some like lit RPG guys, some of the bigger names, and they were like, yeah, don't bother us. These are way too short. I was like, this is still like 200 something pages. It took me like 6 months to write this. This is not that short. I mean, come on. Right. So, and then, Jess reached out and was like, no, we want it. Let's do it. So I hadn't told my wife that I was doing this at all. So that's always a thing. Right. So it was just like a fun thing to do and whatever. Maybe should have mentioned I got signed by a publisher, but whatever. I still didn't. I was still like, whatever. Because you don't know. It sells, 15 copies and you're like, yay, me. Right. Then you got to force all your friends to read it, whatever. And I was like, no, if I'm going to write a book, I want it to be something people want to read organically, not my friends that I forced to read or my family. So whatever. So just published the book. And it released like big. Like it was a big release. It was, top 500 for like a week. And then I think Amazon got like frozen in the rankings. I don't know if it would have gotten worse or whatever, but it froze there. So it was just cruising. So like 3 or 4 weeks of this of being top 1,000, #1 new release in lit RPG. I finally like one morning at like 7 a.m. was like, hey, honey, I need to tell you something. And she's like,
and I'm sure she was concerned.
who is it? Right. And I was like, it's not that. I wrote a book. And she's like, what? I was like, I wrote a book. It wasn't a big deal. She's like, I have so many questions. I'm like, just wait. It's actually a big deal. Like it's selling like hundreds of copies a day. And I figured I should probably let you know by now, like that this is a thing. And she's had so many questions and whatever. So then, of course, I told some of my friends and like my close family. I still haven't told a ton of people. I mean, some people organically have started finding out that I'm an author, but it's, still the thing. Like, nobody at work knows this. So, but
oh God,
yeah, it's like the secret identity, and it's a really fun,
That's his pseudonym, which we kind of forced on him.
So
he wanted to make it something else, and I was like, no, I like Matt Pivots.
So the funny thing about that is it is like a stock trading pseudonym, right? So like a pivot is like an engineered like line like that a stock will trade on and whatever. So I used to like talk stocks with people and whatever in like COVID time, because what else were you gonna do? You just got to learn something. So I think that is that was the name. And I was on Discord. I don't use Discord much except for like play video games with my buddies and talk on this stock channel. So Jess was like, I thought that was just what it was. I was like, oh no, I had all these other ideas and whatever. And she's like, no, it's Mad Pivots. So
It's Mad Pivots.
that's all I got into it, just kind of by accident. I wanted to do like a crafting like support guy. So yeah, my first book is, he's kind of a background guy. He's like the fat nerdy guy who just kind of like solves things with his brain a little bit more than with his might. He becomes more of a badass as we go because Marcus forced me into not having him be a fat nerd forever, which is fine. It worked out really well. The trilogy turned out really well. And the second book's similar too. It's like a blacksmithing focus. He can fight, but not as much, right? So it's a whole thing. So that's my niche. And then they always find their way into a mine, right? So like
this one does.
It's because why not? And it's very realistic of mine, right? Because I've been there and I know it. So my newest book that's coming out in a couple weeks has a really cool mining scene. Like he gets like stuck in the shaft and it's like a whole thing. It really happened to me. It's like the scene that's in that book really happened to me and it's terrifying and it's true. So yeah.
So you're paying,
mining stuff is based on a true story.
You're getting paid for your therapy. I dig it.
100%.
That's how I started writing. I'm there for it. So you missed an opportunity there, Matt. You should have waited till the first check came in and just casually deposited it in the bank. And when she asked you where that money came from, like, oh, I sell crack.
Right. Yeah. She's like, who's Royal Guard? It's like, oh, my minions, my army of crack dealers. Yeah.
Right. You missed an opportunity.
Well, and the funny thing is, right, like everybody was like, that's almost worse than cheating. And I was like, how is it worse than cheating? They're like, because you're like a secret, writing author guy, right? I'm like, yeah. And then, of course, all the feedback I get from the people who do read the book, they're like, wow, you really do sound like an author. This sounds like an actual book. How do you take that? I don't know. But that's
you just smile and nod.
Yeah, I get that.
So you mentioned you were uploading the chapters. Were you writing them? Was it for Royal Road or Wattpad or any of those?
No, just Royal Road. I just kind of started writing. I just write right in there and upload them. And I still like therapeutically do it. I don't use Royal Road anymore. I got one of my books stolen. It was the whole thing. Just squashed it in like 6 minutes, which was great and actually helped sales. So that was fine. But it got stolen and I was like, this is stupid. So, but my second series actually had, multiple thousand followers and stuff. So that was really encouraging. And this book is the first one, the second one of this series. It's the first one I didn't write any chapters on Royal Road. And I'm very scared because I have no idea if it's any good. This is the first time I don't have my safety blanket, but I've got some faith that I've
So have you thought about doing the, I guess Patreon or Ream or one of those sites like that for people to pay to early access?
I started Patreon and it stressed me out. I had like 10 Patreon people and they like started dropping because I like waited 2 days, right? And I'm like, with 3 kids and like I've been traveling a lot and doing so much stuff for work, like it still is like the second or third job. So Patreon stressed me out and like releasing a chapter a day stressed me out, right? Like I would blast out like 4 or 5 chapters and then I wouldn't write for like a week just because of how crazy my schedule is. And with all the kids, man, it's like sun up to sundown. So no, I haven't done too much with that. I mean, even TikTok, I was trying to post like every day, at least something, just saying hi and keep people updated. And I had a bunch of followers on there too, and haven't posted there in a while. So Jess is like, where's my book at? I'm like, it's coming.
So we've done, let's see, as Blasters and Blades, we've done over 400 interviews. I think this is like 409. And then we had about 300 when we were Sci-Fi Shenanigans only. And I can tell you out of all of those interviews, I have never met an author that said, yeah, I got the social media down just the right amount. Everyone's like, yeah, I should probably use my website and maybe be on social media more. So you're in good company.
I mean, it seems that way. Yeah. I think we're all good at like writing some books. And then like the rest of it is kind of like, just can help or Marcus.
Yeah, I remember when everyone switched from calling it their blog to their website so that they didn't have to feel like compelled to actually write regular content over there. Because, you do kind of want to get paid for what you write. Sometimes it's nice.
Yep.
So what made you get interested in this specific genre? Because, I mean, of all the things you could have written, this is a niche place to land.
Yeah, I think it was just the whole, like, I like the idea of a niche anyway, right? So, like, just my, whole business life is kind of niche down, right? I have like some like a little rental portfolio that's super niche, right? I have a very specific product that I bring to the Charlotte market. So it's just, I've always kind of been a niche guy. And then I started reading these books and I was like, this is incredible. And I found that there was a niche within the niche kind of missing. And I filled it, really. I mean, Jess can correct me if I'm wrong, but I really was kind of one of the first people to do a crafting lit RPG. I mean, there was Honor Ray did his cards, which was kind of cool, right? So he kind of broke off and did his own thing, which, great for him because he's done incredible with all the skills. Like I said, I just kind of wanted to do something that was a little more like engineering, right? So like the kid like solves stuff in a magical world with real engineering and real physics, right? Like he makes like a Tesla coil and one of the things to like zap water dragons, because why not, right? Because that makes sense, and that's how you do it. That's how you defeat a water dragon as a nerdy fat kid. So so I think there was like a bunch of that kind of stuff where you're just like, there's no way he's gonna get out of this. And then, but of course, some of the reviews of my people were like, I saw it coming. And I'm like, no, you didn't. You did not. So anyway, so that's kind of it. I just wanted to get into like this niche, and I just kind of fell into it, I guess. I mean, if my first series didn't sell well, I probably would have been like, well, I suck at this. Never mind. Right. So it kind of worked out.
So how does the process of getting your covers work for you? Do you find them and this is what I want, or you just let the publisher handle it?
Yeah, Jess is awesome at that. I kind of am like, here's what he does in the book. And they're like, that's stupid. We're going to make that cover way better. And then they make it way better. That's laughing because it's true, because they're like, yeah, no, that's not going to work, Matt. So that's pretty much, they're always like,
that only happened once.
Yeah, I mean, so they send me a couple ideas, and I'm like, a little bit of that one, and he should wear a cape. And they're like, well, no cape, but okay, thanks for that. And then they make it, and it's really awesome. It turns out. I pushed them in one direction on Enchanted Forge, and it failed, right? Because Marcus is like, this isn't going to work because it's dark and it looks cool, but you're not, right? So like we had to change that kind of on the fly. So they're really good about covers, and they work hard. I mean, they send all kinds of stuff to you and give you a lot of options, and the artists are incredible. So they do a really good job.
All of my publishers have taken advantage of that. Well, you're colorblind, so you can't see it anyway. We're just going to make this decision for you. And I'm like, okay. And I just go with it. It's the perfect excuse. I use it whenever I can. So if you want to pretend to be colorblind, I give you permission from all of us.
The colors are usually pretty just, I don't know. I don't want to say like standard, but lots of greens and right. Both of my characters have been kind of like on the elven natural, way. So yeah, they've been pretty good. But I got to say, going on Jonathan's Divas track, I was a little bit of a diva on this Enchanted Forge, just because I was like, if I get an audio narrator, the dwarven accent needs to be money, right? I had it in my head. I was like, this is going to make or break the book. And to my defense, that's the only time I've ever been right. It totally did. That, like, Exo did incredible. I was like, have him send me some dwarves. And he did a whole, like, segment. And I listened to him like, that'll do. That's fine.
So did the dwarves sound Scottish? Because that's sometimes, I've seen that's a lot.
They were like a Jim Lee kind of, whatever. So in the book, I changed the way they like, so the verbiage of how they speak has like YE is you, right? So it's like a yeah, yeah, so he did an incredible job. His dwarves are awesome. Like they made the book, which in my head, they're like the best characters, right? Because they're the mining characters, and they kind of like, they have like the whole thing. So, right, their whole civilization is built on this mine with this magical ore and all this stuff, right? And they like control the world because of it. And that's like the whole thing. They're the central part. So they're central part in my second book. So I was like, whoever I get needs to have this down, because there's a lot of them and they need to sound awesome. Which
one of these days,
very diva-ish on that one.
One of these days, we're gonna get dwarves that sound like they're from Massachusetts. Pocket con the Harvard Yard. Just because.
So Matt Hicks did an incredible job on my werewolves. He made them like West Virginia bad guys. They had I was like, I have like Southern werewolf bad guys. This is awesome. And everyone loved that too. And I didn't tell him what to do at all. He was just kind of just calling a murder happen with these guys. And I was like, that's cool. So, yeah.
All right. So now that we've talked about everybody's individual sort of role and how they got into that. So do you guys have obviously you're going to list your own, Matt, but do you guys have a favorite that you didn't produce, with the exception of Jessica and Ryleigh, since they did all the things? So with Jonathan, what's the favorite one that you've seen so far that you didn't produce?
Oh, that I didn't produce? Well, I mean, the rule of thumb for me is always my favorite is the next one, of course. But as far as ones I haven't produced,
I don't know if some audiobook narrators listen and read a lot too, and some are like, no, it messes my flow up, so they don't. So I don't.
I think Jonathan works like 80 hours a week.
Well, I just get a lot done in that time. Well, I mean, I think there's only been a couple of times where, I mean, Jess sent me something for, audition wise, being like, they're looking at people, we're just sending them some options and stuff. And it's pretty rare. I mean, again, I'm on awesome ground with this, which is amazing. That like very rarely do I audition for Royal Guard anymore. They're like, John's doing it. You want John? Great. But there's been a couple times in the early days where it was like, what do you think about this? What do you think of that? Can you send me something? And, now and again, I spot some of these other narrators that are on Royal Guard. I'm like, oh, that looks awesome. Dang it. Wish I'd done something like that, or could have done that. But I don't try to lay. I'm sorry, what?
If you could clone yourself, you could just do them all.
I'd have to put him in a different room and be like, can you shut up over there? And then just like, whatever. But I mean, I love this genre. I love the things that I get to do. And most of the time, like I do listen to audiobooks, but a lot of those are, like this is the, brand new crazy bestseller, something. And I maybe get like 12 of those a year or something when I'm like mowing the lawn or something. So it's not like I'm consuming as much as I'm producing, which would, I think I'd go insane a little bit. But that being said, like I don't know. I try my best not to be envious of other actors and other things that get produced. Once in a while, in this business, you run across stuff being like, I auditioned for that. And then you get kind of curious, being like, do they sound better than me? Like, and then you get real judgy and real shitty, and then you just feel like an asshole for like a day. Not that you don't get glory for like 5 minutes being like, oh, I do sound better. Those authors and people don't know what they're talking about. And then sometimes you hear it and you're like, oh, they made the right choice. So I don't necessarily have like a title that comes off like, oh, this was really good off of this. I mean, I love what I do, and I love working on whatever comes next, especially with like slightly new concepts. Like Matt was talking, like we run into a lot of the kind of the same sort of stuff now and again, like the hero boy who becomes overpowered, and having that same thought of like, well, what about this guy over here who is like, I made you a sword, go get him, buddy. What's his thing? Like, is he okay? Is he having to rebuild his house after the attack that happened right before the hero showed up? Like, it's I enjoy all these nuanced and new different directions that all these authors are taking, because they're exploring like anybody else, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
So you're the kind of guy that would like the story about what happens after the superheroes do their fight, and the guys that got to come and clean it up, and like, oh, Sheridan Accounting, I need an extra $1,000 for that wall.
Well, don't get me wrong. Like I'm a DC fan. So as much as I love seeing like, oh yeah, there has to be someone who cleans up Metropolis after Superman like levels most of, the town. Like, don't get me wrong. I'd love to see some of that, but there is, I mean, I'm a huge Batman fan. I'm a huge this and that. And like, there's nothing that beats like, oh, how's Batman going to get out of this one? I hope he punches the Joker enough. Like, it's great. But like, I think we're seeing something being like, hey, we're not going to show you the same stuff that you're mostly used to, because we get a lot of it, and it's good. It's all good. Like, it's amazing. But it's so much fun to see like, oh, I've never thought about that before. I never thought like, mining or crafting or that like this would be compelling in this sort of way. And it absolutely is. After a while, you're like, oh, did he level up? And you're super excited for them, just as long you're with them on it. So I like my fluff as much as the next person. Absolutely, who doesn't? But I can't say I'm like trying to reinvent hipster-isms by being like, no, only if the hero is, the blacksmith from 2 towns over, whatever. I like them all. I like them. All the things, man. It's all good stuff.
So what about you, Matt? What are you liking in the genre other than your own books, obviously?
So yeah, I love honorary stuff. All the skills is awesome. That kind of helped me break off a little bit. So I was reading his books while I was writing Whisper of Iron. So like I said, a lot of stuff that he was doing I hadn't really seen before in the genre, and that was cool for me. I love Dungeon Crawler Carl with the next guy, right? Like, so when Jonathan's talking about music and sound, I mean, Sound Booth is an incredible studio. What they put out for that series is cool, man. I mean, we're as close to listening to a movie as we've ever been in an audiobook with them, so hats off to them and everything they've done. I mean, even his voice acting just cracks me up. And then I'm on Ripple series or Ripple system. That's been really good. I was anti-Frank for a while, and he's grown on me. I don't know if you guys have read that one yet, but the Talking Axe, I was ready to throw it out the window, and the audiobook saved it. I'm a big fan of his work too, and especially after Cradle. Cradle's another one, and Will White is what he's done for. I can't say us really, right? Like Cradle isn't a lit RPG, but for what Will's done to get some attention to the non-mainstream fantasy series, I know I appreciate it, right? To see him make #1 on his last book almost brings a tear to your eye, to think that some guy in Florida man, right, was able to do it. Like, maybe I can do it one day too, right? So write enough books and maybe someone will buy it. So that was cool. So those are my main ones that I love. And then sci-fi wise, project what was it called? Hail Mary was incredible. I don't know if you guys have read that. Andy Weir, and that was great. The way he approached meeting like alien life and all that stuff, just the thought that goes into it. Once you get past the way he writes, which is a little, snarky and whatever, incredible. Just for a science nerd like me, like who is like talking to an alien life form that doesn't speak, like, right? It's just cool. So I think that one was my other one, like non-lit RPG favorite.
Nice. We actually interviewed the people at Sound Booth last season, so they're fun people.
That's cool.
And their personality in their interviews fit with the products they produce. That they were bringing it. So
that's cool.
So what about you, Jessica? Obviously, like, you like all the things because you don't have a favorite child, but between us and the people listening, right? So what's been your favorite?
So Jessica works 80 hours a week for real.
You need sleep.
And then I am a mom too. So I actually don't have a lot of free time to read. I do listen to audiobooks. And I'm sorry that I like the spicier stuff, but I do. So I don't think we're allowed to talk about that on this one, right?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, okay. I'm a big fan of Virgil Knightley. His books are very intriguing and definitely keep you awake.
Yeah.
And and then I like, oh my gosh, what was that one called? There was one, it wasn't super popular, but they ended up having like 13 songs for the narrators to sing in it. And I enjoyed that one quite a bit just because it was a big surprise. I knew the story behind it. The narrators didn't know they were going to have to sing. And then they did. And it was great. It was my favorite thing in the world.
I read some of his. He did the Esoterica series, Virgil Knightley did, and bringing like Lovecraftian and making it cool. Because I've tried to read Lovecraft, the original. I feel like the people that wrote after he died with his ideas did a much better job than he did because his writing was very much a product of his time. So it was cool to see some of that stuff come to life. I was digging it. So.
And then, of course, I love Jake's Magical Market because everyone loves Jake's Magical Market. So, we gotta love it. That was like one of our first big audiobooks that we got to do, and so of course we listened to that one as a family, possibly with kids in the car, which maybe wasn't the best idea.
I will tell if you won't tell.
It's a lot of F-bombs in it, but they were young enough to not really know what was going on at the time. But we enjoyed that one a lot too.
What about you, Ryleigh? Do you have a lot of time to read with all the books you're publishing for them?
Yeah, a good bit. I read a little bit of ours.
Do you have a favorite of what you've read?
See, that's where I'm trying to think. Probably Dungeon Heroes. I like Jack Spry, Shane Hammond.
Okay. That's on the list. This is one of the ones that was recommended that I try. So I write reviews for Upstream Reviews, and so I've been mixing it up. Like they want me to review this book, and I'm like, okay, but then you have to take this review of this one. It seems to be a good trade for me. So that's on the list. I've heard good things. All right, so Jessica, as we wrap this up, because I promise you I try to keep it to an hour, because as you mentioned, you have kids and they like to eat. Weird, I know. What have you guys got coming out next?
So we actually released today. I don't even know if Jonathan knows this yet, but Jonathan is now officially a published author as well as a narrator.
Nice.
It is an anthology called Bullets, Blades, and Babes. And it has a bunch of different authors and a bunch of different narrators. And Jonathan Waters wrote his first story, so that's really exciting. And then I also have another secret anthology that Matt Pivets is a part of. And that one's really cool. You guys will be excited for that when it comes out. It is a ton of like the top lit RPG authors. Timeless Wind and I got together and we decided to do it. And then each story is narrated by a different narrator. But that is like all done. I think we're just waiting on the cover to get finished, and it's going to come. The audiobook's already done too. So that one's going to come out. I'm really excited for that. We were able to get some of our authors in there, and I got to work with new authors I've never worked with before. And basically what we did was we were like, we want a theme, but like not a theme. So we were like, okay, we'll just make the theme cards, but not really cards. Just like you get to create a card that goes with your story, and then write a story about it that kind of goes off of it. So that way there's like a little art and little story to each thing. And that was the way we could do a theme without there actually being a theme, because we thought a theme might get boring if you read 11 stories about dragons, right? So it should be really cool. Honor Ray's in it, and Cal Ivan, Hunter Mythos. Oh my gosh, now I can't think of everyone that's on it. But it'll be exciting. That's coming out soon. And we literally have audiobooks published every day. I think we had 8 published last night. So just search Royal Guard Publishing and then do newest to oldest, and you'll see what came out recently.
We will link all of that in the show notes, dear listener. So never fear. All right, Jonathan, what do you have coming out? Or do they just, you finish it, turn it in, and you don't necessarily, I don't know how it works for audio.
Well, it's a little, you do your thing and you send it off, and if you have to fix anything, then it's kind of off to the races, right? I didn't sign no NDA. So we have
you did? Oh, you should, no, just kidding.
So I did narrate and write into the Bullets, Blades, and Babes, which I'm very happy and honored to be a part of. So that came out yesterday, I think, or
late last night, and then the ebook published today.
The last couple of things that came out was the 3rd book in the Siege series, Sect. It's me being a dragon most of the time, with Melanie Hastings, I believe. And I just put on the finishing touches of Dark Lord of the Farmstead #4, and I think it's the last one of that one, and it's the coziest, just sweetest damn thing. And constantly working on other stuff. I got a Marcus Sloss one that I am about halfway through at the moment.
With dinosaurs.
With dinosaurs. So that one's on its way to be almost done here this week, hopefully. And the next couple of months is going to be me just wrecking this voice. So keep your ears out for Jonathan Waters.
So I had, when Amazon last month, or Audible last month, did the sale, and I went through and I was just buying a lot of books. And before this interview, I went and I typed your name into my Audible library, and I'm just saying there are at least 27 because I stopped counting at that point. So I hope you didn't spend it all in one place. That's all I'm going to say. All right.
Well, I try not to.
All right. What about you, Matt? What are you writing right now?
So I have the Iron Guild series. First book was Enchanted Forge, and the second one is Untitled still. I'm on my 2nd draft, almost done with that. And then my editor will be starting probably in a week or 2. So there'll be something about mountains, maybe about dwarves. I'm not sure what the title is going to be yet, but that's coming out. end of July. It was supposed to come out like May, and like I said, I screwed that all up. So we're coming a little late here, but it's cool. It's worthwhile. The first book was really well received, very good reviews, which was cool. My Whisper of Iron series was very good selling. The reviews weren't as high, but first series. But I don't know if I'm going to revisit Whisper of Iron series. It was 1 through 3. If I did 4 through 7, that's probably the direction I would go. I've got some ideas. I've kind of been doing some stuff. So first, we're going to finish Iron
I'd
Guild.
be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, Jess is like, so so I may go back to that. And then I'm in the anthology, which was cool. So my book is a short story. It's about 15,000 words. And it's about a real estate guy. So he builds a treehouse for an elven family. So like an elven estate. So it's his whole story about the struggles he has. And it's way different. So my card was let's say my card. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my card was the merchant magician. So he's a seer. So he can kind of like see the future a little bit. So he like foresees problems, but obviously other problems happen. It's a whole thing. So Exo was also my narrator because it actually takes place in the same universe as my Enchanted Forge Iron Guild series. So there's some background there that's like takes place like 20 years before the first book. So it's some depth there and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool and pretty fun. And I've like fangirled so hard when Honore was like, "What's up, everybody?" I was like, "Oh my god, Honore!"
I did too, just to be honest. And then she said happy birthday to me on my Facebook page on my birthday. I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
Honore said happy birthday to me.
So, since we have you on, as we're bringing this to a close, Matt, can you tell people where they can find you on the Wild Wilder interwebs? And as usual, links will be in the show notes.
Yeah, so the books are all Amazon, Audible. I'm on TikTok, so I just kind of ramble on there and talk about the daily life of what it is to try to write books and fail most times and redo things until they sound better. And I am on Facebook, doing a lot of stuff on Facebook, a lot of cool stuff there. I think that's it. Is there other ones? I don't think so. So I have a Patreon as well. Like I said, it's not highly functioning, but if I were to revisit some of these books and start writing, I think I would do a chapter a day on there, and I got to do that. So that's where I'm at.
And Jonathan, where can they find you? And as usual, dear listener, links will be in the show notes, but where can they find you online?
The easiest way to find me is johnwatersvoiceover.com, Jon, not John, johnwatersvoiceover.com, and I have a lovely wife who updates my resume every week, month, so on. So if you like me in audio, you like me in video games and such, you can find my stuff there. You can also find me probably, the face place on John Waters Voiceover or Instagram with John Waters Voiceover.
All right. And last but certainly not least, Miss Jessica, how can they find Royal Guard Publishing?
So we have all the social medias, but we are the most active on Facebook. So you just search Royal Guard Publishing on Facebook. We post on there every single day for every release that we have. And by we, I mean Ryleigh. And then we have a Discord. So the Discord's a pretty cool place to come because you can talk to authors, you can talk to narrators, you can talk to other readers, you can talk to other listeners, but they're all in there. Jonathan's in there, Matt's in there, Ryleigh's in there, I'm in there. You can talk to me. And that's kind of a fun, very casual place. And you'd have to find that with a link because it's like random little code or something. And then we have our website, which is just www.royalguardpublishing.com, which, to be honest, we don't really update very often. We just kind of have a link to our Audible on there. We have not updated our authors probably since we brought on Matt Pivets.
I don't think I'm on there.
I did put you on there. I remember that.
Hey.
Yeah. And then, but we kind of, it just was a lot. So, and like everything is on Amazon and everything is on Audible. And then you can search for us on Amazon as well. You can try searching Royal Guard Publishing. That doesn't work as well. You kind of have to search by the author names to find the people you're specifically looking for. But all the links would be on our Facebook or in our Discord.
Yeah, and I gotta say, like I joined Royal Guard at the middle lower part of the trajectory, right? So like I've kind of seen.
It was like right when we started, just because we were only audiobooks forever, and everyone was like, "Come on, publish for us," and we were like, "No, I still have a full-time job," and we, our kids were. Our son is like a like a little feral child. So he was a lot of work, and he was still really young at the time. So he was just a lot of work. And then finally, Michael Angel, I don't know how we agreed to do it, but we did. We did the Pirate Wizard series, and it just went really well. And that kind of made me like a little more open to it, because I just thought it was going to be really hard. Not that it isn't hard, but it was also enjoyable. So it was in the beginning of that we opened up submissions for ebook, which are actually closed now. Sorry, but only if you're in, you're in. But you can keep submitting, but we can't take more, at least not without. We do still do some harem series, but it has to be kind of like on an approved premise kind of situation. But like Matt Pivots is welcome to continue to submit series to us. So yeah, it was back then.
So I guess once you're a jet till your last dying breath there, Matt.
And that is only ebooks. We still accept all submissions for audiobooks.
I slid in there by accident, and it was a whole thing. You always think too, like, I'm getting scammed, right? And Marcus was like, not a scam. I will pay you, right? So that's cool. I was like, will you though? It's like, yeah, no, otherwise I'll go to jail. So I'll pay you. Like,
that's literally his answer.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't actually like going to jail, so we do.
I'm not going to jail. I'll pay you. And I was like, all right, I'll sign. Whatever. What do I have to lose? So yeah. So thank you guys for taking me on. That was awesome, and obviously changed my life for good. We've done really well together, and looking forward to the next series.
And this is the part, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So if you like what the authors you're writing and you want more of it, one way to do that, besides keep buying it, is to write the reviews so other people will buy it. And so it really does help. It makes more of a difference to the AI algorithms in the background than you know. So do your part, people. And you can find us on our link tree at linktr.ee, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things: the bit shoots, the rumbles, the YouTubes, the Twitters, the email blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. We have a Facebook group and Facebook page. And more importantly, we have Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitter, and email. So send all the hate mail her way. She loves it. I promise she'll get into it. It's her jam. We have a website over there on Spotify. It's a bunch of gobbledygook. Trust me, just go to the link tree, and you can support us there for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. Or you could support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink that coffee brand coffee until it pours out of their eyeballs, people. And if you want to buy some of your own, links are in the comments. Podcast Grunts is the code, and you get 10% off. And who doesn't like a discount? And with that, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy and absentee co-hosts, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you, Jessica, Ryleigh, Jonathan, Matt. I appreciate you guys coming on. This was a lot of fun. So we hope you guys check out their stuff, check out their books. It was enjoyable.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.